Who is he? Kang Min Seok's voice was
Who is
dangerously
he?
quiet, but his eyes blazed with barely restrained fury. For 2 years, Maxine Chen had been the perfect executive assistant to Seoul's most feared underworld figure. She'd mastered the art of being indispensable while staying invisible. She'd learned to ignore the dangerous men in tailored suits, to anticipate his needs before he voiced them, to keep her personal world completely separate from his dark empire. Then he saw her having dinner with another man, and everything shattered. The jealousy wasn't subtle. It was violent, consuming, and it revealed a truth Maxine had been desperately trying to ignore. Her cold, untouchable boss had feelings for her. Dangerous, complicated, absolutely forbidden feelings. And the worst part, she felt exactly the same way. Hey there, friends. Get ready because this forbidden romance is about to get absolutely wild. Maxine had 3 sacred rules for survival. First, never question the business dealings conducted behind closed doors. Second, his espresso had to be perfect, black, double shot, precisely 180 degrees. Third, her dating life stayed completely off his radar. She'd honored these rules religiously. 2 years of flawless service, anticipating his every requirement, managing his impossible schedule, becoming someone he couldn't function without while maintaining professional distance. Which made it absolutely horrifying when Kang Min Seok walked into Celestial Gardens restaurant on Friday evening while she sat across from David Park. Min Seok entered flanked by bodyguards, devastating in a charcoal suit that probably cost what she earned in 2 months. His expression was perfectly controlled, the mask he showed the world, but something flickered in his eyes when he spotted her. He crossed the restaurant with deliberate strides, stopping directly at her table. "Mr. Kang," Maxine managed, her voice strained. "What an unexpected surprise." "Indeed." His gaze cut to David, cold and evaluating. "Introduce me." It wasn't a request, it was a command. David stood, extending his hand with genuine friendliness. "David Park, pleasure to meet you." Min Seok studied David's hand like it might be dangerous before shaking it briefly. "Kang Min Seok, Miss Chen's employer." The way he emphasized, employer, carried unmistakable possessiveness. "Ah, Maxine mentions you occasionally," David said warmly. "She says you're quite demanding." "Does she?" Min Seok's tone went arctic. "What line of work are you in, Mr. Park?" "I'm actually in." Min Seok raised one hand, cutting him off mid-sentence. "Actually, never mind." Then he simply walked away to his reserved table across the room. "That was bizarre," David remarked, and Maxine could only nod numbly. She tried focusing on her date. David was nice, genuinely nice. A marketing consultant her friend had set her up with, someone completely removed from Min Seok's world of shadows and danger. This evening was supposed to be her escape, her chance at normalcy. But Min Seok sat 3 tables away, and Maxine felt his stare like a physical brand on her skin. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly, meaning it sincerely. "I'm not feeling well. Could we possibly cut this short?" Disappointment crossed David's features, but he was too kind to argue. "Of course. Let me handle the bill." "No, I've got it," Maxine insisted, fumbling for her wallet with trembling fingers. They settled up and left. Maxine didn't glance toward Min Seok's table, but she felt his gaze follow her all the way out, burning into her spine. The weekend dragged by in agonizing silence. No texts from Min Seok, no calls, nothing. The absence felt more threatening than confrontation would have. Maxine alternated between anger at his presumption and terror that she'd crossed an invisible boundary. What if Monday brought a severance package and a plane ticket back to the States? By Monday morning, she'd almost convinced herself she'd imagined the intensity in his stare. That maybe he'd simply been surprised to see her there. She arrived at 8 sharp, prepared his coffee exactly right, and knocked on his office door at 8:15. "Enter," his voice was ice. Min Seok sat behind his massive desk, backlit by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's skyline. He looked as he always did, Powerful, controlled, lethal in ways most people didn't recognize until too late. "Your coffee, Mr. Kang," she said, setting it down with steady hands despite her racing heart. "Thank you." He didn't look up from his laptop, fingers typing with precise control. When he didn't dismiss her, Maxine asked carefully, "Is there anything else you need?" "Yes." His fingers stopped moving. He looked up, and the coldness in his eyes stole her breath. "I need clarification about something." "Of course, Mr. Kang." "Friday evening, Celestial Gardens." His voice was deadly soft. "I need details. Who was he?" Maxine felt her professional composure slip. "Excuse me." "The man you were dining with," Min Seok said, making clear he knew exactly what he meant. "Who was he?" Anger flared hot in her chest. "With respect, Mr. Kang, my personal time is my own." "Not when it impacts my operations," he countered, leaning back. His expression stayed frozen, but she noticed the tension in his shoulders, his clenched jaw. "How does my dinner companion impact your operations?" "Because you work for me." He stood abruptly, moving around the desk into her space with controlled aggression that made her step back involuntarily. "Because anyone connected to me becomes a target. Because I need to know who you're associating with. Who you're—" He stopped himself, jaw muscles jumping. "Who I'm what?" Maxine challenged, finding her courage. She'd spent 2 years being the perfect assistant, accommodating his every demand. She wouldn't tolerate interrogation about her private life. "Who you're trusting with your time," Min Seok finished roughly. "Who you're letting into your world. Who you're—" Again, he stopped. "Who I'm dating," Maxine said bluntly. "Just say it, Mr. Kang." Something flashed in his eyes, fury mixed with what looked almost like anguish. "Were you?" "That's none of your business." "It absolutely is my business." Min Seok's control fractured, his voice rising. "Do you think I don't understand the dangers you face working for me? Do you think I don't take measures every single day to keep you safe? And then you go out with some stranger I haven't vetted, haven't approved." "Approved?" Maxine's voice matched his volume. "You think you get to approve who I date? I'm your assistant, not your possession." "I never claimed you were my possession," Min Seok shouted, and Maxine had never seen his mask crack this completely. "Then stop acting like you have any right to interrogate me." They stared at each other, both breathing hard, electricity crackling in the air between them. Min Seok's hands were fisted at his sides, his jaw so tight she could see the muscle pulsing. "Get out," he finally said, voice low and dangerous. "Mr. Kang." "Get out." Maxine turned and left, closing the door with deliberate precision. She made it to her desk before sitting down, her legs suddenly shaky. What just happened? Monday was torture. Min Seok was glacial, not his usual professional neutrality, but actively cold. Clipped answers, no eye contact. He held meetings without her for the first time ever. When she brought his lunch, which she did daily because he'd forget to eat otherwise, he thanked her without looking up. By Tuesday, Maxine wondered if she was about to be fired. She arrived early, determined to be so perfect he'd have no choice but to acknowledge her value. But when she entered the office, someone else sat at her desk. A woman, Korean, stunning in designer wear, hair in an elegant twist, typing on Maxine's computer like she belonged there. "Excuse me," Maxine said tightly. "Can I help you?" The woman looked up with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You must be Maxine. I'm Jae-yeon Park. Mr. Kang hired me as a consultant for some upcoming projects. I'll be working closely with him." The way she said, "closely," made Maxine's stomach turn. "I see," Maxine said, forcing pleasantness. "And you're using my desk because—" "Oh, Mr. Kang thought it would be more efficient when you're not here. I hope that's all right." Another empty smile. Maxine wanted to storm into Min Seok's office and demand answers. Instead, she said coolly, "Of course, let me grab my things." She collected her belongings with shaking hands and found a temporary workspace in the common area. All day she watched Jae-yeon come and go from Min Seok's office, laughing at his comments, touching his arm casually, bringing him coffee that wasn't made correctly. And Min Seok allowed it. By Wednesday, Maxine was ready to resign. By Thursday, she was certain Min Seok was deliberately trying to make her jealous. The infuriating part, it was working. She'd spent 2 years carefully not acknowledging how her heart raced when he smiled at her rarely. How she noticed everything, the way he took his coffee, how he rubbed his temples when stressed, the genuine laugh she could sometimes draw from him. Now, watching another woman fill the space she'd occupied, Maxine had to face reality. She had feelings for her boss. Complicated, inappropriate, completely unprofessional feelings. And he was replacing her. Friday afternoon, Maxine was packing her temporary desk when Jaeyeon appeared. "Maxine, Mr. Kang would like to see you." Maxine's heart jumped. Now. Jaeyeon's smile was triumphant. Maxine walked to his office on trembling legs, knocked once, and entered. He stood by the windows, back to her, hands in pockets. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Kang?" she asked, professionally neutral despite the turmoil inside. "Close the door." She did. Min Seok turned, and Maxine was startled by how exhausted he looked. Shadows under his eyes, loosened tie, hair mussed like he'd been running his hands through it. "How was your week?" he asked quietly. Maxine blinked. "I'm sorry." "Your week, how was it?" "Productive," Maxine lied. "Jaeyeon seems very capable." "She is." Min Seok moved to his desk, leaning against it. "She's also my cousin. My aunt sent her from Busan to assist with some legal complications on a real estate deal." Maxine's brain screeched to a halt. "Your cousin?" "My cousin," Min Seok confirmed. "I should have explained properly, should have introduced her correctly, but I was." He stopped, jaw clenching. "I was angry and petty. I wanted you to feel even a fraction of what I felt watching you with that man." "You wanted to make me jealous," Maxine said slowly, anger building. "Yes," no hesitation. "That's incredibly immature." "I know." "And manipulative." "I know." "And completely inappropriate." "I know," Min Seok's voice rose. "I know it was wrong. I know I'm your boss and have no right to be jealous when you go on dates. I know I'm supposed to maintain boundaries. I know all of it, Maxine, and I don't care." Maxine stared. "What?" "I don't care," Min Seok repeated, moving toward her. "I've spent this week trying to convince myself I don't have feelings for you, that you're just my assistant, that watching you with that man didn't make me want to burn that restaurant to the ground. And I can't lie to myself anymore." He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. "I'm in love with you," he said quietly. "I have been for longer than I want to admit, and seeing you with him was killing me." Maxine's heart hammered. "Min Seok." "I also know," he continued roughly, "that I have no right to ask you to give him up. No right to demand you choose me when all I can offer is danger and secrecy and a life that could get you killed. So I'm not asking. I'm begging you to understand why I've been such an ass this week." "He's not." Maxine stopped, took a breath. "That date wasn't real. David is my friend's colleague. She set it up because she worries I work too much. There was nothing romantic there. There never was." Relief flooded Min Seok's face. "What?" "I'm not interested in David," Maxine said, voice shaking. "I'm not interested in anyone except—" She stopped, terrified. But Min Seok looked at her with such desperate hope. "Except you," she whispered. "I've had feelings for you for so long, but you're my boss, you're dangerous. This is impossible." Min Seok kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, possessive, 2 years of suppressed longing compressed into one moment. His hands framed her face as Maxine's fingers tangled in his jacket, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Min Seok pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for being jealous and possessive and crossing every line, but I'm not sorry for wanting you. I'll never be sorry for that." "I want you too," Maxine admitted, her hand still fisted in his jacket. "But Min Seok, this is complicated. You're my boss. You're involved in things I don't ask about. Then we'll make it work anyway, he said fiercely. Whatever it takes, whatever you need. Just don't ask me to stop loving you because I can't. I tried and I can't. Maxine looked up at this dangerous, powerful man who was looking at her like she was his entire world and made a choice. Okay, she whispered. Let's try. Min Seok's smile was brilliant and brief, and so genuine it made her chest ache. I should probably tell David this definitely isn't happening, Maxine said. Min Seok laughed, really laughed, the rare sound she loved. I'll wait, he promised. 2 weeks later, Maxine's life had become beautifully surreal. By day, she remained Min Seok's assistant, professional, efficient, maintaining appropriate boundaries despite how difficult it was becoming to keep her hands to herself. By night, she was his girlfriend, a secret carefully guarded, known only to his most trusted people and her friend Sarah, who'd squealed with joy when Maxine confessed. It was complicated, difficult, sometimes terrifying when she thought too hard about what Min Seok actually did. But it was also the happiest she'd ever been. Min Seok surprised her constantly. She'd expected possessive and controlling, and he was to some degree, always wanting to know where she was, insisting his driver escort her, upgrading her apartment security without asking. But he was also tender in unexpected ways. He brought her morning coffee with kisses that tasted like possibility, asked about her day and actually listened, remembering tiny details she'd mentioned in passing. Left notes in her apartment on mornings he had to leave early, silly things like "your coffee maker misses mine" that made her laugh and ache simultaneously. He taught her Korean cooking on weekends, patient when she burned the rice or added too much gochujang. She taught him to appreciate American rom-coms, laughing when he got invested despite initial resistance. They were building something real despite every reason they shouldn't. Which made it terrifying when Min Seok asked one evening, "Come with me to the Seoul charity gala next Friday." They were in his penthouse, her unofficial second home now, scattered with her belongings slowly invading his space. Her toothbrush in his bathroom, her favorite tea in his kitchen, her books on his shelves. Maxine looked up from the file she'd been reviewing, curled on his ridiculously expensive sofa while he worked at his desk. "The gala, as your date," Min Seok clarified, setting down his pen. "Not my assistant, my date." Maxine's heart stuttered. "That's very public." "I know. People will talk. Your associates, your rivals. Let them talk." "Min Seok," Maxine set down her file, anxiety churning. "If we go public, that makes me a target. You said it yourself. Anyone who matters to you is vulnerable." Min Seok left his desk to sit beside her, taking her hands. His expression was serious, the mask completely gone. "I've already increased your security," he said quietly. "Tae-young watches your building, the one who looks like he could bench press a truck. Mi-sun follows when you leave work. She's my best surveillance specialist. My most trusted people, Maxine. The ones I'd trust with my life." "I didn't know," Maxine said, startled and slightly unsettled. "That was intentional. I wanted you safe without feeling watched constantly." He squeezed her hands. "But if we go public, security becomes more visible, more intrusive. Your life changes in ways I can't control, and I won't do that without your consent." Maxine considered it. The implications of stepping fully into Min Seok's dangerous world, instead of existing in the shadows. "What if I say no?" she asked. "Then we stay as we are, secret, safe, together in private." Min Seok's thumb traced patterns on her knuckles, a habit that never failed to melt her. "But Maxine, I want to hold your hand in public. Want to introduce you as mine instead of hiding what we are. Want the world to know you're the most important person in my life." Maxine's eyes filled with unexpected tears. "You really mean that?" "Every word." He pulled her close, tucking her head under his chin. "But only if you want it too. Only if you're ready. I won't push you." Maxine breathed in his scent, cologne mixed with something uniquely him that she'd become addicted to, and made her choice. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's go to the gala." She felt Min Seok's smile against her hair. Yeah. Yeah, but Min Seok, I'll need a dress. A really spectacular dress. His laugh rumbled through his chest, warm and genuine. Already handled. I had 3 delivered to your apartment this afternoon. Choose whichever you like. You were that confident I'd say yes. No, Min Seok admitted, pulling back to look at her. But I was hopeful, and if you'd refused, I would have donated them and tried again next month, and the month after, until you were ready. Maxine kissed him, pouring everything into it, love and fear and excitement and trust. The Seoul Charity Gala was exactly as overwhelming as expected. The venue was breathtaking, the Shilla Hotel's ballroom dripping with crystal and old money, filled with Korea's elite in designer formal wear. Champagne flowed. Photographers captured everything. Seoul's society mingled and made deals and judged everyone. Maxine had chosen the emerald dress, deep jade silk that hugged her curves and made her skin glow. Min Seok had sent jewelry too, diamonds that probably cost more than her annual salary, delicate and beautiful and terrifyingly expensive. She felt like an imposter, like everyone could see she didn't belong in this world. But then Min Seok had arrived at her apartment, and the way his eyes widened when he saw her made every insecurity evaporate. Maxine, he breathed, frozen in her doorway. You look. Too much, she'd asked nervously. Perfect. He'd crossed to her in 3 strides, hands settling on her waist. You look absolutely perfect, the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Now, walking into the gala on his arm, Maxine tried projecting confidence she didn't entirely feel. The whispers started immediately. Is that Kang Min Seok? Who's the woman? I've never seen her before. She's gorgeous, but who is she? Wait, isn't that his assistant? Min Seok's hand tightened on her waist, protective and possessive. He leaned down, his breath warm against her ear. Ignore them, stay with me, I've got you. The evening blurred introductions and curious stares. Min Seok introduced her to associates carefully as Maxine Chen, someone very important in my life. Not his assistant, not his girlfriend, just important. The ambiguity drove people crazy with curiosity. They danced. Min Seok pulled her close on the dance floor, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers, and suddenly Maxine forgot about the whispers and cameras and danger lurking beneath this beautiful evening. Thank you, he murmured as they swayed. For what? For trusting me, for being brave enough to be here. His eyes were soft, vulnerable in a way they never were in public. For choosing me despite all the reasons you shouldn't. You're worth it, Maxine said simply, meaning it completely. Min Seok kissed her forehead, and somewhere cameras flashed. By morning, their photo would be everywhere. Social media, gossip sites. The mystery woman with Seoul's most dangerous bachelor. The assistant who'd somehow captured the heart of a supposedly heartless man. But in that moment, swaying in Min Seok's arms, Maxine didn't care. 1 week later, the backlash came. By Monday, her photo was everywhere. Social media, gossip blogs, even legitimate news sites speculating about Kang Min Seok's mysterious girlfriend. Most of it was harmless curiosity. Some was cruel, comments about her not being Korean, not being appropriate for someone of Min Seok's status, speculation about gold digging and ulterior motives. Maxine tried ignoring it, but it was hard when people stared at her on the street, when strangers recognized her at coffee shops, when someone left hateful comments on photos her friend had posted years ago. Min Seok was furious when he found out, had his tech people scrub what they could, threatened legal action against the worst offenders. But Maxine knew it wouldn't stop. This was the price of being with him publicly. She was managing, or trying to, when real danger appeared. Wednesday evening, Maxine was leaving work late, tired and ready for home. Min Seok's driver was supposed to meet her, but she'd told him she'd walk the 3 blocks to their usual spot. She needed air, normalcy. She made it 2 blocks before feeling it, someone following her. Maxine had lived in cities her entire life. She knew the difference between normal foot traffic and deliberate trailing. She sped up, so did they. She turned a corner. They followed. Her heart pounded, fear sharp and cold. She reached for her phone to call Min Seok's driver when someone grabbed her arm. Maxine screamed. "Quiet," a man hissed in Korean. "We just want to talk." "Let go," Maxine yanked, but his grip was iron. Then suddenly, he was gone, ripped away by a woman who moved faster than Maxine's eyes could follow. Mi-sun, her security detail, the surveillance expert who was supposed to be invisible. Within seconds, 4 of Min Seok's people surrounded Maxine, and the man was on the ground, restrained while Mi-sun spoke rapidly into her phone. "Are you hurt?" Mi-sun asked Maxine in accented English, scanning for injuries. I'm fine, just scared," Maxine said, hands shaking. "Who was he?" "We'll find out. Mr. Kang is coming." Min Seok arrived in under 5 minutes, his car screeching to a halt. Maxine had never seen him look so terrified. He crossed to her in 3 strides, hands on her face, her shoulders, checking for injuries with shaking hands. "Are you hurt? Did he hurt you?" "I'm okay," Maxine said, then burst into tears. Min Seok pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. She felt him shaking. "I'm sorry," he said into her hair. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should have had more security. Should have insisted you never walk alone, should have." "Min Seok," Maxine pulled back to look at him. "This isn't your fault." "It is." His eyes were wet, devastated. "You were right. Going public made you a target. And I was selfish enough to do it anyway because I wanted to show you off. Wanted everyone to know you were mine. And now someone tried to," he couldn't finish. "But they didn't," Maxine said firmly. "Your people protected me. Mi-sun was there instantly. I'm safe." "This time," Min Seok said. "But what about next time? What if?" "Then we deal with it together," Maxine interrupted. "We face it together. That's what we agreed." Min Seok looked at her like she was insane. "Maxine, you were just attacked on a public street. You should be running from me as fast as possible." "Not," Maxine stopped, then continued, "not choosing to stay with you anyway." She cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. "I'm scared. I won't lie, but I'm not leaving you. We'll figure this out." "I don't deserve you," Min Seok whispered. "Probably not," Maxine agreed, managing a shaky smile. "But you're stuck with me anyway." The man who'd grabbed Maxine was interrogated by Min Seok's people, then turned over to police with enough evidence to ensure jail time. He'd been hired by a rival organization to send a message: your weaknesses can be exploited. Min Seok took it seriously, tripled Maxine's security, started driving her to and from work himself, moved her into his penthouse temporarily for safety. The temporary arrangement became permanent within a week. Living with Min Seok was different than dating him, more intimate, more real. Maxine saw him at his worst, exhausted from late meetings, stressed about business deals, nursing headaches from too much tension and not enough sleep. But she also saw him at his best, sleepy and soft in mornings before putting on his public mask, laughing at terrible TV, dancing with her in the kitchen while dinner cooked. She learned he liked reading before bed, literary fiction, surprisingly. That he had a collection of his mother's recipes he'd been slowly learning. That he had a younger sister studying abroad who he talked to every Sunday without fail. He learned she sang in the shower terribly and unashamed. That she stress-baked when anxious, filling his kitchen with cookies and muffins. That she talked in her sleep, mumbling about deadlines and coffee orders. They learned each other. They fell deeper in love. 6 months later, Maxine was reviewing contracts in Min Seok's home office, not the office at work, where she'd been promoted months ago to a legitimate position with her own office and assistant, but she still helped with personal matters, the line between professional and personal thoroughly blurred. "Busy?" Min Seok asked from the doorway. Maxine looked up, surprised. "Not particularly. Why?" "I made dinner reservations." "Min Seok, I have contracts due tomorrow." "They can wait." He moved into the office, leaning against her desk with casual elegance that still made her heart skip. "Trust me, this is important." Maxine studied his face. He looked nervous. Kang Min Seok, who negotiated with dangerous people without flinching, looked nervous about dinner reservations. "Okay," she said slowly, closing her laptop. "Where?" "You'll see." 20 minutes later, they pulled up to Celestial Gardens. Maxine laughed, delighted. "Really, where it all started." "Where it all started," Min Seok agreed, helping her from the car with careful courtesy. Inside, the restaurant was empty except for staff. "Did you rent out the entire restaurant again?" Maxine asked, amused. "I bought the restaurant," Min Seok corrected. 3 months ago, thought it was fitting." "You're ridiculous," Maxine said, smiling. They were led to the same table where Maxine had sat that first night, where Min Seok had seen her with David and lost his mind with jealousy. "I was such an idiot," Min Seok said once they were seated. "Showing up here, demanding to know who you were with, acting like I had any right to be jealous." "You were," Maxine agreed, grinning. "A complete idiot." "But you loved me anyway." I do." They ordered dinner, the same dishes from that first night, a deliberate recreation. They talked and laughed, reminiscing about the past 6 months, how far they'd come. But Maxine noticed Min Seok was distracted, kept touching his jacket pocket, checking the time, nervousness increasing as the meal progressed. Finally, over dessert, he stood. "Maxine," he said, voice steady despite trembling she could see in his hands. 6 months ago, I walked into this restaurant and saw you laughing with another man, and I thought my world was ending. I was jealous and possessive and completely out of line. But I was also falling in love with you, and I didn't know how to handle it." He moved around the table, and Maxine's breath caught as he dropped to one knee. "You've changed everything," he continued, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "You've made me want to be better, made me clean up parts of my business I'm not proud of, cut ties with people dragging me deeper into darkness. You've made me believe in a future that isn't just about power and survival. You've made me believe in us." He opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond that caught the light and threw sparkles across the table. "Maxine Chen, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that falling in love with you was the smartest thing I've ever done? Will you build a family with me, grow old with me, put up with my jealous nonsense for the next 50 years? Maxine was crying, nodding, unable to form words through overwhelming emotion. "Is that a yes?" Min Seok asked, voice hopeful and terrified and vulnerable. "Yes," Maxine finally managed. "Yes, of course yes, you ridiculous man." Min Seok slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, stood, pulled her into his arms and kissed her like she was his oxygen, his lifeline, his entire world. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Maxine said breathlessly, "You know this is insane, right? 6 months ago you were interrogating me about my dinner date. Now you're proposing." "I know," Min Seok agreed, forehead pressed to hers. "I'm possessive and jealous and probably going to drive you crazy for the rest of our lives." "Definitely going to drive me crazy," Maxine corrected, smiling so wide her face hurt. "But I love you more than I thought I could love anyone, and I promise I'll spend every day proving you made the right choice." "I know I did," Maxine said softly. "Because you're mine and I'm yours, and this crazy, impossible love is the best thing that ever happened to either of us." Min Seok kissed her again, and Maxine thought about how far they'd come, from boss and assistant to partners in every way that mattered. It hadn't been easy, wouldn't be easy going forward. But it was real and it was theirs, and that was worth everything. 1 year later, the wedding was small and intimate, just close friends and family at a beautiful venue outside Seoul. Maxine wore a dress that made Min Seok cry when he saw her walking down the aisle. He wore a traditional Korean suit that made her breath catch. They exchanged vows in both English and Korean, promising to love and protect and occasionally drive each other insane for the rest of their lives. Min Seok's sister flew in from London and immediately adored Maxine. Maxine's friend Sarah served as maid of honor and cried through the entire ceremony. It was perfect, small and intimate, and everything they wanted. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Bali, the longest Min Seok had been away from work in years. They swam in the ocean, ate incredible food, made love on the beach at sunset, laughed about how cliché and wonderful it was. They talked about the future, about the family they wanted to build, about the legitimate businesses Min Seok was slowly transitioning to, leaving the dangerous parts of his empire behind. "I want to be someone our kids can be proud of," he said one night, hand on Maxine's stomach even though there was no baby there yet. "Someone who doesn't have to hide what he does." "You're already someone I'm proud of," Maxine said, "but I love that you want to be better for us for our future." 3 months after the wedding, Maxine started feeling off, tired, nauseous in mornings, emotional over things that wouldn't normally affect her. She bought a pregnancy test on the way home, hands shaking as she paid for it. That evening, while Min Seok was in a meeting, she locked herself in the bathroom and took the test. 2 pink lines appeared almost immediately. "Pregnant." Maxine stared at the test, tears streaming down her face. Happy tears, not scared ones. They'd talked about kids, wanted them, but she hadn't expected it so quickly. She heard the front door. Min Seok was home. "Maxine," he called, "where are you?" "Bathroom," Maxine called back, wiping her eyes. She heard his footsteps approaching. "Are you okay? You sound." She opened the door, holding the pregnancy test. Min Seok froze, eyes going wide. "Is that positive?" "Yes," Maxine said, voice shaking. "We're having a baby." For a moment, Min Seok just stood there, staring at the test in her hand. Then he was lifting her, spinning her around, laughing and crying simultaneously. "We're having a baby," he repeated, setting her down carefully like she was made of glass. Maxine, we're going to be parents." "Are you happy?" Maxine asked, suddenly nervous. "I know it's fast." "Happy?" Min Seok cupped her face, tears in his eyes. "Maxine, I don't have words. Yes, I'm happy. I'm terrified and thrilled," and he kissed her. "I love you, both of you." His hand settled on her still flat stomach, reverent and protective. "I'm going to be the best father I can be," he promised. "Going to give this baby everything, safety, love, a life where they don't have to be afraid." "I know you will," Maxine said, covering his hand with hers. "We'll do it together." 7 months later, Maxine was gloriously, uncomfortably, beautifully pregnant. The baby was due any day, and Min Seok was losing his mind. He'd hired Seoul's best obstetrician, prepared the nursery obsessively, read every parenting book available, practiced swaddling on a doll until he could do it perfectly. He barely left her side, terrified something would happen when he wasn't there. "Min Seok," Maxine said for the 100th time, "I'm fine. The baby is fine. You need to relax." "I'll relax when our daughter is here and healthy," he said, hand on her belly, feeling the baby kick. They'd found out they were having a girl 3 months ago. Min Seok had cried. "A daughter," he'd whispered, hand on Maxine's stomach. "We're having a daughter." Now that daughter was making her presence known, with strong kicks, and what felt like gymnastics at 3 in the morning. Maxine's water broke on a Tuesday afternoon. She was at home reading when she felt the sudden gush and looked down in shock. "Min Seok," she called, staying calm. He appeared instantly, having been working in his home office. "What's wrong?" "My water just broke." Min Seok went pale, then red, then pale again. Okay, hospital, we need, the bag is packed. The car is ready, I'll call Dr. Kim, don't move. Should you be standing? Should you sit? Lie down, what do we?" "Min Seok," Maxine grabbed his hand. "Breathe, it's okay. We have time, first bobbies take a while." Right, time." He took a shaky breath. "Okay, let's go have our baby." The labor was long, 14 hours of contractions and breathing exercises. Min Seok holding Maxine's hand through every second. He was amazing. Didn't complain when she squeezed his hand hard enough to leave bruises. Wiped her forehead with cool cloths. told her she was strong and beautiful and doing perfectly even when she screamed at him that this was his fault. Finally, after what felt like forever, their daughter was born. The doctor placed her on Maxine's chest, tiny and perfect, screaming her displeasure at being forced into the world. "Hi, baby," Maxine whispered, tears streaming. "Hi, sweet girl, we've been waiting for you." Min Seok was crying too, hand gently touching their daughter's tiny head. "She's perfect, Maxine. She's perfect." "She is," Maxine agreed. "What should we name her?" They discussed names, but never decided. Min Seok looked at his daughter, at his wife, at the family he'd built against all odds. "Hana," he said softly, "it means one first unity. Because she's our first child, and she makes us complete." Repeated, feeling it settle right in her heart. "Hi, I'm your mama, and this is your papa who loves you more than anything in the world already." Min kissed forehead, then their daughter's, tears falling freely. "Thank you," he whispered too. "For this, for her, for choosing me, for building this life with me, for everything." "Always," said, "we're in this together, forever." And as she held their daughter with Min arms around them both, thought about how far they'd come. From that first night when he'd walked into a restaurant and lost his mind with jealousy. From the tense confrontation in his office. From the fear and danger and uncertainty. To this, a family, a future, a love that had survived every obstacle and emerged stronger. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but it was the life she'd choose every single time. The end. Final thoughts. Sometimes the person who crashes your date isn't ruining your love story, they're beginning it. Thought she could keep her life separate from her dangerous boss. Min thought he could keep his feelings under control. They were both wrong. Because love doesn't follow rules or respect boundaries or care about danger. It just exists. And when it's real, when it's worth fighting for, it transforms everything. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. What would you do if your boss confessed they were in love with you? Have you ever experienced someone getting jealous over you? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.